What's going on YouTube? I'm Rydog and I'm here to teach you all about Blood Bowl. In this week's skill guide, we're taking a look at a skill that drops the vampires from being a top tier team all the way down to the bottom of the table right there with the stunty teams. It's a nega trait and it's called Bloodlust. So let's jump into it. Don't forget that you can catch me live on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday evenings where I'm streaming Blood Bowl 2 in CCL and a number of scheduled leagues, including vampires, so those are always worth a watch. The vampire team has two player types. It's got 0 to 16 thralls, 0 to 6 vampires. Now the thralls, they're nothing special. They're 6337, general access, and apart from being dirt cheap, they've nothing much going for them. The thing that makes the vampire team tick are the vampires themselves. They are 6448, they have general strength and agility access on normals, they start with a super useful utility skill in hypnotic gaze, but the big downside of vampires, and this is what makes the vampire team tricky, is the bloodlust skill. A vampire that fails their bloodlust roll is very hungry and they will need to feed on something at the end of their action. Now they can feed on either the thralls on your team or the crowd. Now normally you want to feed them on thralls, but there is an exception where feeding on the crowd is a better bet, and we'll come to that later on. Now, if you're biting a thrall, it is any thrall that you are next to at the end of your movement. So they could be stood up, stunned, or prone. Doesn't matter, you can bite any of them. And what you'll do is bypass the armor roll and go straight to an injury. So there is a good chance you will remove thralls this way, because the least you can roll is a stun. It's very possible to KO them. When it comes to injuries though, you can only badly hurt them. You can't permanently injure or remove them from the team. So they will be back for the next match, or if you use the apothecary, they'll join the reserves bench. Because you're doing the bite at the end of your action, you're able to move, throw a block, throw a blitz, or attempt a hypnotic gaze before having to bite a thrall. If you want to pass the ball, hand off the ball, or even score a touchdown, then you have to bite before you actually perform those actions. So you move to the square, then you bite, then you pass. When it comes to making a touchdown, this means if you get a bloodlusting vampire over the line to score a touchdown, but he doesn't have a thrall there, he will actually walk off the pitch before he scores a touchdown, and it doesn't count. Now, if you can't get or choose not to get your vampire next to a thrall to bite, then at the end of their action, so they might still throw that block or blitz, you then send them off the pitch. They eat someone in the crowd. It's not very good for spectator attentions, but then you put them in the reserves box and they come back for the next drive. The only time you will cause a turnover from biting a thrall is if that thrall is carrying the ball when you bite them. So that's the fundamentals of how the bloodlust skill works. Let's take a look at how you can manage it. And the easiest one, which is the simplest one, is not to activate the vampires. If you've got a vampire that's in a good position on the pitch and you don't need to move him, then the best advice is don't. Leave him there, saves you the run, which potentially could be a 1, and you can use him next turn. But you won't be able to do that every turn with every vampire. Because of this need to bite, vampires take a little bit of extra planning out every turn than a normal team, because you need to move your thralls into position that they could be bitten if the vampire fails its bloodlust when you activate the vampire. So if you want to make a blitz, you need to take a thrall to the ending position of that blitz before you activate the blitz with the vampire, so that they have the someone to bite if they fail the bloodlust. Your turn sequence in that case might be positioning all of your thralls before activating any of your vampires. You can't do that every turn, because some turns you have to start with a vampire action, but you need to be aware that wherever your vampire finishes their action, whatever that action happens to be, that there potentially might need to be a thrall at that end position to be bitten before you activate the vampire, because once you've activated the vampire, it's too late. What do we do? Because we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd need a hypnogaze here, and I'd need a hypnogaze there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we can, whilst we can hit the ball, I'm not sure it's a good idea to try. But what we can do is take this block here. Perfect. Let's shove you in there and let's follow it up. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we'll do that and Hypno there. We might actually come round and hit the ghoul. So let's see, do we get the Bloodlust? We don't, we just do the 2. So let's go for that Hypno gaze here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Question is, do I want to try and get another vampire in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could try and get another vampire in there. If I put this guy in here, that would work. Now, we're not going to have anyone left for recovering the ball here. And there's our first Bloodlust. We will live with it. Which means we're going to have to bite the kick thrall, though he pretty much has done his job now for this match. Hypno works, so that means we can hit the ball. But otherwise, I think we do have to just stand these guys up. Oh yes, remember to do the Bloodlust. It's been a week or two since we actually played any vampires. Straight in with an injury, and Tiki is out. You can only get a badly hurt from a bite teammate, and that is not exactly how we hoped this would start. Because we will need okay, we don't need the reroll here, which is thankful because we had no one to bite. And we get the power we needed as well. The wolf's got sidestep, it'll probably come down here. And ooh, that is worth a catch, I think. Right. No idea what we do now. Now, you don't always have to fail the Bloodlust. You can use a team reroll, or if you get lucky with level ups and decide to go with Pro on a vampire, then you have an option to reroll that Bloodlust. But it's always a risky situation that you either double one the Bloodlust or the Pro doesn't work. So the safe answer is to position the thralls just where you think you're going to need them. You can change the vampire's action. So if you decide you were going to make a blitz, but that doesn't leave you in a good position, you don't have to make that blitz. You could simply just move to a biteable position, rather than throwing the block. The Bloodlust skill makes the vampire team tricky to coach, and it's down to positioning. Every time you activate a vampire, at the end of that action, they might need to bite someone. So the turn sequence will involve getting a thrall into a position that can be bitten when the vampire takes their action later in the turn. If you can pull this positioning off, then failing a Bloodlust roll won't cause a turnover because you will have someone to bite. If you can't make that positioning work, then you might easily be in a position where you've taken your action with the vampire, but then suffer a turnover because there's no one left for them to bite. Now, this is where picking up the ball comes in as its own little separate situation. So if you went to pick up the ball and failed because you rolled a 1 or it was raining or in tackle zones, dropping the ball there causes a turnover. And if that vampire happens to be bloodlusting at the time, if there isn't a thrall there for them to bite, not only have you suffered a turnover from dropping the ball, you've also had that vampire leave the field to feed on the ground. From a positioning point of view, this kind of means that you'll need a thrall marking the ball so that the vampire can bite them if they fail to pick up and then stay on the pitch. But you also need someone at the end of that vampire's movement in case they're bloodlusting, but they make the pickup and then move on beyond the thrall you've got marking the ball. It's interesting situations like that that really make vampires fun to coach, but frustrating at the same time. Over the course of a match, you are going to lose thralls. They're only strength 3, they're armor 7, and they have no native defensive skills. So you will see some loss to blocks, you might even see some loss to failed dodges, but you probably will see some loss to vampires being hungry. Which means later into the game, second half potentially, you have 3 or 4 vampires on the pitch, but maybe only 3 or 4 thralls left. Now when you look at this, you might think it's better to lose a vampire to a bloodlust, goes off and eats the crowd, than it is to risk injuring another thrall who won't be back for later in the game, because the vampire that leaves the pitch will go into the reserves box and he'll be back for the next drive, but an injured thrall will be out for the rest of the match. Because the bloodlust skill is there, the team composition of a vampire team is very important. You can't just build a team of 6 vampires and 5 thralls, because there aren't enough thralls to keep the vampires on the pitch. Now, how you do this is a matter of opinion and personal choice, but I wouldn't recommend having any more than 4 vampires on the pitch any one time, and 3 is probably a safer bet. But with only 3 vampires on the pitch, you are asking your thralls to do more of the heavy lifting. It is worth noting that there are some differences in the implementation of Bloodlust between the tabletop and fumble, which are over here, and Blood Bowl 2 from Cyanide, which is over here. Now on the tabletop, and then fumble, you declare your action at the start of that action. So if you're going to make a pass attempt, you declare that when you activate the player. When it comes to Blood Bowl 2, you don't make that declaration until you actually attempt the action. And this is really, really important. On Blood Bowl 2, it's possible to start to attempt an action and then change your mind halfway through. So let's say you want to pick the ball up with a vampire and you're going to make a pass. Not an unreasonable situation, but that vampire rolls Bloodlust and you don't have the positioning to be able to make that pick up, pass, and then bite a thrall. What you could do instead is change your mind, take that bloodlusting vampire and do something else with him. You could take him off and do a hypnotic gaze and then bite a player, or just move him and bite a player. But you haven't used your pass action because you don't declare it yet. So you could then decide, well, I'm going to pick up the ball and pass it with a different vampire or a thrall. And these slight differences in the implementation of certain rules make a big difference. And you'll see possibly a mistake made with a tabletop player not understanding the Blood Bowl 2 interface and a Blood Bowl 2 player not understanding the slight difference with tabletop rules. So that's everything I've got for you on the Bloodlust skill. Hit me up in the comments below if I think I've missed anything out, or if you've got any questions on this skill or other skills, I'll answer them there for you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, it really helps out the channel to keep those numbers going up. And you won't miss out on our next skill, and that is going to be Bonehead, another nega trait, but this time it's one for ogres. So you'll see those on the ogre team, the human team, and the Chaos Pact team. Until then guys, keep rolling those 6s and we'll see you soon.